morning. Happy Father's Day. My name is Reverend Michael Roque, and it is my honor, my privilege, my thrill to be up here and sharing this idea of Father with you today. And I think Unity has a really unique perspective on it. And it's because when we talk about Father, some of us, it evokes this idea of Heavenly Father. And when we think about that in Unity, it's this idea of connecting, going deeper, and connecting within ourselves. Spirit, if you will. And in Unity, it makes it just so much fun to be able to all of a sudden understand that everything that they've talked about, all these master teachers, all these incredible people that have come before us to share this wisdom, really came down to this idea that, holy cow, you mean there's something inside of me? And if I take the time and learn how to connect with it, then all of a sudden I can have like this pretty amazing experience, this relationship with this thing called God. And that relationship doesn't have to involve guilt, blame, shame, judgment. What? But that's not what I was taught. When I grew up, I was taught that guilt, shame, blame, and judgment had to be a part of it. Because after all, I was born in original sin. Were you? Or did somebody just tell you that you were? Unity will challenge you. It will challenge your beliefs about who and what you are, who and what God is, and what that relationship is. Because we believe, just like Jesus believed, that relationship is the most sacred and holy relationship that you can have. And that relationship can go deeper than your wildest imagination. Because when all of a sudden you let go of the limited thoughts and beliefs on who and what you are, the limited beliefs that you have about God, the limited beliefs about that relationship, then all of a sudden there's this thing that happens within you that will change your life forever. It will. Because when all of a sudden you understand no guilt, shame, blame, judgment, that you are divine just as you are, and that you don't have to earn your divinity, that's your gift because of the amazing being that you are, and that all you have to do is receive, that's it. Receive. In other words, get out of the way. That's it. Get out of the way. That's all you have to do. And let the love of God come. The love of God that is yours just for the asking, just for the receiving. And when you can let go of that, holy cow, what a party we are going to have. And so what do we do here? We come together, we work, and we look within ourselves and find those judgments, find those things where we say, no, we're not worthy. And I'm telling you, that did not come from you. It came from somebody else that put that garbage in your head. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How fun. And how fun can it be? And so, Unity, we do a little bit of a different dance. We look at this thing a little bit differently than a traditional way of looking at it. And there's no shame, blame, or judgment against the traditional ways. I came from the traditional ways. I love some of those traditions. I do. But I also understand that I can look within, and there's work to be done. And when I do that work, and then I start working and using spiritual tools that we teach here, all of a sudden things start to change. And what a good time we can have. So, if you're here for the very first time, we welcome you. We thank you for being here. If this is your 401st time, thank you for being here. We are thrilled. Whether you're here in person or you're watching us here online, we come together and we make this space pretty magical. There's something that's happening within the space, I'm telling you, that's changing things. And I'm going to ask if you're here to understand that you are actually contributing to what's going on inside of this space. And when we decide to come together as a family, we can make the space pretty magical. So even that just by sitting here, maybe you can have a healing. Maybe there can be a transformation. Maybe you can send love and light to somebody that needs love and light. We have that kind of power. Remember the old saying, where two or more are gathered? Didn't somebody kind of famous say that at some point in time? I'm not sure. I might have read it in a book somewhere. Two or more are gathered. Why? Because that's what happens when we come together and we acknowledge the divinity within ourselves, and then we acknowledge it within each other, and then guess what? We call on the Spirit together, and then guess what happens? Miracles happen. And so even if you're just sitting here, and you can, if I can push you to imagine that we can create that together in this space this morning, not 10 years from now. And if you're really looking for that, it can happen here because we can create it, because that's what we were told. Father's Day. Today we come together and we celebrate fathers. And I wish I could sit up here and tell you that for all of us, it's this amazing memory and this incredible tribute to the fathers that we love, but I know the truth is it can stir up a lot of things, a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And before we get into it, I just want to acknowledge that, because I know there's people sitting here right now that are struggling with the relationship with their father, whether the father is still alive or whether the father has passed. And I want to acknowledge that. I think it's good. I think we can have a celebration. Sounds like a good time to me. And I can also acknowledge the fact that some people still try to understand exactly what it was that happened with this thing called the relationship with their own father. And I know for me personally, it took me a minute to figure that out. I'm to the point now where when I think about my dad when he was alive, the relationship was challenging at best. And now what I've come to realize is, after spending time and really looking at it, what I've realized is the truth was, even though my egoic mind thought that it was not the best relationship on the planet, what I have realized is my father gave me exactly what I needed because of who and what I was to become. He helped create the environment, and even though my ego wanted to judge what that environment looked like, what I now realize, it was absolutely perfect for me to do what it is that I was meant to do. It could not have happened without that environment. It couldn't have. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I sat there and thought, oh, this was amazing, because the truth was I struggled with it at times. And my guess is there may be one or two of you that are probably thinking the same thing. And so I just want to acknowledge that. So, having said that, I would also like, if we could, to have the fathers that are with us this morning please stand up so we can acknowledge you. Could we have you stand up, please? And can we acknowledge the fathers in the room this morning? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I also would like to just spend a moment and acknowledge the fathers that are not here with us, whether they're busy out having fun playing golf or watching the U.S. Open or whatever it is that fathers do on Father's Day. But we also have fathers that are no longer with us. They've made their transition. And so I'm going to light this candle, just like I did for the moms on Mother's Day. And I just would like us to spend just a moment in silence acknowledging them. And if you could just join me. If your father is no longer here, letting this candle represent the memory of our fathers who have passed. And with tremendous gratitude, we imagine them in our minds. We send them our love, our gratitude, our thanksgiving. And we just say, thank you, Dad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now what I'd like to do is have us as a community send a blessing to our fathers. So we're going to say this together if you would join me. I bless my father and those men who have shown me love. Today I bless and give heartfelt thanks to my father and those men who were fatherly figures for me. Their protective presence, wise guidance, and caring instruction provided the tools for me to be the person I am today. I bless my father and those who shared a father's love and care with me throughout all the seasons of my life. I am deeply and profoundly grateful. Through good times and bad, I experienced my father and other men using their divinity to support me in countless ways. Applying the principles of faith and generosity, they have been faithfully generous in amazing ways. I bless them with prayers of gratitude for utilizing the principles of understanding and love to lovingly care for me. I bless my father and the men who have shown me love. Amen. So once upon a time, in the ancient land of Israel, there lived a devoted and compassionate man named Joseph. And Joseph was a father who loved his family deeply and always sought to guide them with wisdom and grace. His story is found in the Bible in the book of Genesis and serves as an inspiring story and an example of fatherhood. So Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, and he had 10 older brothers. However, he was his father's favorite, which created kind of a rift and a great deal of jealousy amongst his brothers and his siblings. And to exacerbate it, he would walk around, he had vivid dreams, and he would tell his brothers that one day they would bow down before him. So imagine how that one went over. Well, we can laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't cool. In fact, it infuriated his brothers even more. And they wound up coming up with a plan to basically get rid of him. And so what happened is one day when he was just a young man, his brothers saw an opportunity. And what they did is they sold him as a slave to a passing caravan, and then deceived their father into believing that he was actually killed by a wild animal. And so you think, well, that's not a very fun story. But then, what happened was that over time, he became actually the assistant to Pharaoh. And actually, he wound up becoming the Pharaoh's right-hand person. So, back in those days, there all of a sudden became a famine that hit the land. But in Egypt, which is where he was from, they were thriving. And what happened was Jacob, the father, said to his sons, you need to go there because it's the only chance that we have for us to survive. And so all his sons wound up going there. And when they showed up in that land, all of a sudden, Joseph recognized him, all his brothers, but he didn't say anything. So what he did is he set up these little tests to see if they had changed. And so he did. And he watched them. He observed them from afar. And all of a sudden he noticed that his brothers really had changed. And so what he did is he went to them and he finally said, I am the brother that you sold into slavery. Now you would think with having all of that power that he would wind up sending them away. But the truth was he didn't. He forgave them. And he forgave all his brothers, and then he also acknowledged his father. And of course his father, who thought he was dead, was absolutely beside himself. He thought he was killed years and years ago. And so the story shows this idea of compassion, shows this idea of forgiveness, shows this idea of understanding that Joseph had and his father had, because Joseph learned it from his father Jacob. And so it's a wonderful story to illustrate this idea of a father's love and a father's power and a father's strength. And it's a great example, of my opinion, of something that when I think about fathers, when I think about their own power, their own strength, it's this beautiful combination. I think sometimes what happens is we think about a dad, we think about this tough, gruff guy. I don't know how many people's dads were like that. My dad was like that. My dad fought in World War II. He was a tough guy. He was a very tough guy. But I think sometimes when I think about this idea of a father, I think about this thing, this divine masculine. You know, when we talked about the mothers, we talked about the divine feminine and all the beauty and the warmth and the compassion and the receiving and everything. And I think to balance that off, then we've got the divine masculine. And I think when we talk about fathers, we can all of a sudden understand that there may be a changing, a shifting that's happening in this world. I really do believe that my father and the people of his generation had to be the way that they were because of everything that they went through. Think about it. World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. Tough, tough, tough times. Thank God for them, right? They got us through where we are right now. But now, do we really, 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 really need that? Do we need all of that? Or is there a possibility that maybe things can start to shift a little bit? And that's where my heart, my thought, and my prayers go to. That this idea, this divine, if you will, masculine, can now start actually coming through us, so that we can have this beautiful balance. This idea that we've got, yes, you've got the tough, the gruff, and the hard part, but then you've got this other part that can be more soft, more open. Do I dare use the word vulnerable? Do I dare say that we can start actually trying to do things together and not have to be so independent, which is to me the way that it felt for that generation. They just felt like they had to be so strong. And again, I want to totally honor that. Totally honor that. And so as we think about that, I also think about some of the people in my life, the mentors in my life, who have inspired me. And I think about, one of the people I think about is Charles Fillmore, right? And Charles Fillmore, when you think about Charles Fillmore, to me, Charles Fillmore was he was basically the voice, for the most part, of unity. He's the one that wrote all of the books. He's the one that was out there talking all over the country and the world about unity and these principles. He was amazing. If you've read any of his stuff, you will know how deeply passionate he was about sharing the message, this understanding of your divinity. He was passionate about it, and he wrote about it, and he spoke about it, and he taught about it, and he showed us how to do it. And then when I think about mentors, of course, I'm going to think about Jesus. Speaking of divine masculine, he was able to, if you remember the stories, he was able to actually embody it. And he was able to show up in times when there was passion and compassion needed. You remember the time when they're getting ready to stone Mary Magdalene, and what does he say? He who has not sinned, throw the first stone. He's the one that did that. And so he shows up in this amazing, beautiful calm, and he's able to embrace her in that moment. However, you'd also notice, remember the money changers? What did he do in the money changers? In the temple, what did he do? He was pissed. He got mad, right? And he showed up in his strength, and he said, enough. He knocked over the tables. He said, get this garbage out of here. You don't do this here. And so he was able to do this amazing balance. And I think, wow, what an incredible, incredible example of somebody that could balance the two of them. I hope for you somewhere there's some examples, some mentors. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's some other examples you have of this beautiful balance. I know for myself personally, I even like to go back into history. I love history. And I love American history. And I love to go back in and read about the founding fathers and what they went through to create this amazing country we live in. And it's fascinating to me how they were able to do it, what they had to go through when you realize that this was just an idea. It was a thought that they came together and they put this thought or this idea of, hey, maybe we could create something that might be a little bit different. And it's not like our history is perfect, but my God, what they went through. How many times we sat there and wobbled throughout the history of this country where it almost didn't come together. We think we're sitting here right now and, I know we're having our struggles, but the truth was this was an amazing story. And when you go back and read what they went through, it's incredible. It's incredible. And so my hope is that every single one of us in our own way can go back and think about, well, what does that look like, this idea of this fatherly figure? Is it your dad or is it somebody else? And I thought it would be really fun today if we had a couple of people come up and share their thoughts about their father. And so, Charles, if you would. Yeah, sure.
Good morning. When Mike asked me to speak for a couple of minutes, it took me back to a talk I did years ago about my father and trying to condense 20 to 25 minutes into 2 or 3. So I'll put it this way. Mike talked about how tough our fathers were. My father was. He was a product of his times. Born in 1917, as a child, he developed asthma, which he had his entire life, the first of many ailments. He lived as a small child and early teen through the Depression. And then in World War II, he served in the military, but only on the home front because of his ailments. He was a hard man. And he was hard on his children. He was demanding to the point that he and I fought, because even then I was a free spirit. And he asked me, why can't you be like everyone else? And my response was, because I'm not. We continued through life with a back and forth. And as I found unity and I got trained in something called neurolinguistic programming, I came to realize something very important. That all the issues between he and I were my issues, not his. He was who he was. And to this day, although he died in 1991, I love him for it and all he taught me. Thank you so much, Dad.
I hesitated to talk about my dad because a lot of people know his story already. And he's been around Unity for a long time. But then I thought, you know what? There are things about him that people don't know. What are some of the things that we do know about him? He has been a Unity member for over 70 years. And he was the church organist for 50 of those years. And he turned 97 in March. Still alive, still lives at home, lives with my sister. And when I talked to him about the sale of the church at Walker, I thought, well, he might be a little bit sentimental about that. And you know what he said? You know what he said? You know how much we paid for that church? We paid $15,000 for that land. And you got $550,000? That's a pretty good return on investment. But what are some of the things that you may not know about him? Number one, he was in the Navy in World War II. One of my favorite stories about the Navy is he was assigned to take a torch and cut some things off the ship. And one of his commanders came by and said, "Son, you know you're cutting halfway through the main structure of the ship. It's a good thing you didn't get through that beam or the ship would have come apart." He was also, we took him to the American Dunes. And I don't know if I was telling Mike earlier, I don't know if you know, but the American Dunes is a golf course that was done by the Folds of Honor. And it honors veterans up in Grand Haven. And we took him and they made him feel so special. They all came out, congratulated him, and he was the second World War II vet that they had last year. So that was really cool to have that experience. He also played high school baseball, graduated from the University of Michigan back in the early 50s, raised 5 kids, like to think he did pretty well raising those kids. And he worked at the American Seating Company for 52 years. And he was also an umpire. But some of the things that he taught me that I still use today, how to use and live Unity principles, that was something that both he and my mom were very, very inspirational in terms of doing that. And Sunday school helped too. And that family comes first. We always had one family vacation a year. Usually it rained because we camped, but every year we went on at least one family vacation. And next, patience helps solve problems. And I still use that today. If there's a problem, take a minute, think about it, be patient about it, and usually an answer will come. And I know I was struggling when I was going to change jobs quite a while ago, and he said, you know what? When one door opens, another door closes. And when that door closes, you walk through the open door and don't look back, because usually it's for the better, and it always was. And that's the way I feel about selling the church in Walker as well. We close that door, we open the door to this beautiful building, and things will work out for the best. And the other thing about closing the door and opening the other is that, you know what? You can take your memories anywhere. You don't have to be tied to a building or an object or anything that comes in your way. Your memories go with you. And then finally, 3 things: hard work, loyalty, and honesty. And those are things that I think are important and that I use today. So Dad, I know you're watching online. Happy Father's Day, and I love you.
And honesty were some of the things that he took away that his father shared with him. Who would like to share 1 or 2 words that come to mind when you think about your father? Anybody? Yeah, Bobby.
My father was of an older generation. He's passed away about 20 years ago, and he was a gifted school administrator. He was worked with visually impaired children. He was a superintendent of the Missouri School for the Blind for 17 years, and then he had an opportunity to come to Lansing, Michigan, and he was superintendent of the Michigan School for the Blind for 17 more years when he retired. But he loved to be a mentor, and he had a way of seeing young men that needed some guidance, that needed some love. And he had a way of making them feel proud of themselves. And he had he was born on a farm, and I remember some of his sage wisdom. And he would say, are you a part of the problem, or are you a part of the solution? and
Yeah.
another one he had that was one of my favorites was, why are there so many more horses' asses than there are horses? I love you, Dad.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. Anyone else? A couple of words? Anything they'd like to share? Lisa?
I think my dad was very patient, and he had a great sense of humor, and he was very hardworking. And I just thank him for all the good, positive influence he had on my life. So I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Thank you. We're good. Oh, one more.
Thank you. I also struggled with a relationship with my dad for most of my life. I didn't understand him until I began my spiritual journey. But the two things that I connect him with is he would always say, oh, why yo, on your own. Or he would say, according to your faith, that's how it will be. And through my spiritual journey, I began to see how that's the most valuable thing he could have instilled in me. Because in the end, I am on my own, always. And I need to develop faith. And in all of the struggles or experiences that I've had that felt bad, it's been my faith and perseverance and my deepening of my spirituality that's seen me through. So nervous, but just to honor that it is true that even in the struggle, they are doing their part.
Yeah, amen. So it's such a blessing to think about our fathers and think about the impact that they had on us. And I thought it'd be really fun. I found another little video clip I wanted to share with you this morning about some conversations about dads. I hope you enjoy it.
This is slightly intimidating. Dad, what about me makes you proud?
Oh, man.
Dad, what about me makes you proud?
Dad, what about me makes you proud?
Oh, man. Dad, what about me makes you proud?
And I have to answer that one?
Yes.
Just about everything that you do.
You're loving, you're funny. I could go on and on.
What makes me proud about you is you just being yourself.
I had trouble with alcohol. It was actually an intervention. Even with all the other people there, you were the real reason that I made the decision to go into the treatment center that I did. And thank you.
Thank you. You're helpful. Yeah, you forgot the funny part.
Your attention to hygiene.
Dad, I am grateful to you for
choosing to stay when I was little. Why am I crying?
At the time when I'm graduating and I'm packing up and leaving, then it's really gonna hit me. And
I think about a time when if you're not around, like that would be awful. But like you're the person that would always laugh.
Dad, I'm grateful because we didn't know how long you were going to be with us, so we're so happy that you're still here.
Dad, I'm proud of you for knowing that the most important thing was to just give your kids so much time.
I've always been impressed by you. You made it easy. Thanks.
I miss having the chance to just check in with you. I miss your sketchbooks.
I love you. I love you too.
We don't say it enough.
Hey.
I love you, Dad. It doesn't compute until they're gone. So tell them now. Sort of weird standing so close to you.
And so, as we finish up our celebration of our fathers today, I hope something during our time together has touched you, has touched your heart, has helped you connect, if you will. Whether your father's here or whether your father's not, whether you struggled with your father or whether you did not, there's still this divine presence. And for me, that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is this presence. This thing inside of me that connects me. It connects me to myself. It connects me to even that which is beyond me, and into ultimately a connection with Spirit, with God. And so, whatever the dance looks like for you, I hope that you go forward in this day and continue the dance. I'm so incredibly blessed. I'm so incredibly thankful for each and every one of you and the gifts that you bring. Every single one of you matter. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you think you are or you're not, because I know who you are. And even though some of you want to hide, guess what? I'm not going to let it happen. Together we can do amazing things. Together we already have done amazing things. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. People are looking for something like this. People are waking up. And they don't exactly know what's going on, and they're trying to figure it out. And they need to have something to be able to go, wait a minute, what's going on here? And guess what? That's what we do. And guess what? That's what you do in your own unique way. And so let's do that. Let's have fun. Let's laugh. Let's cry. And let's remember who and what we are. That's what we're doing here, folks. Happy Father's Day. God bless you.